My family humiliated me for years at their real estate company, but while they treated me like trash, I secretly built my own $65 million firm. And when I won the national award, they never saw coming what I did next. I'm 32 years old. I work in real estate, and I need to tell this story because I basically spent the last 6 years of my life building an empire while my family thought I was a failure. I'm Audrey Marshall, the middle child of Samuel Marshall. You know, Marshall Enterprises, one of the biggest real estate firms in Chicago. And yeah, I grew up with all the money you could imagine. But believe me when I tell you that meant absolutely nothing when you were invisible to your own family. I guess I should start at the beginning. Or at least at the moment I realized I was never going to be enough for them. I was like 26 years old, fresh out of college with honors in finance and business administration, and I was super excited because I was finally going to work at the family company. My older brother Maxwell, the golden boy who never did anything wrong, had already been working with my dad for like 4 years, and my younger sister, Clara, well, she basically spent her time at parties and social events being the perfect family princess. I was the middle child, the one who always tried to get attention with good grades and brilliant ideas, but who somehow always ended up being ignored. I remember perfectly that family dinner on a Tuesday night because Tuesday dinners were sacred in my house. You know, family tradition and all that shit. We were in the huge dining room of my dad's house in Lincoln Park, that ridiculously long table that could seat like 20 people but where it was just the 5 of us. My dad was at the head, obviously. Maxwell to his right as always. Clara was telling some story about I don't know what charity event, and I was trying to get into the conversation to talk about some properties I'd been analyzing. Like, I'd found this developing area in the West Loop that was about to explode, and I had all the numbers, all the projections, everything perfect. But every time I tried to speak, my dad would interrupt me to ask Maxwell something, or Clara. I would say something that was apparently more important, and I'd just sit there with my mouth open, like an idiot. Eventually, I managed to get my whole pitch out. I was super nervous, but I did it. I explained all the investment potential, the projected profit margins, everything. And my dad, Samuel Marshall, with his 58 years and his $3,000 suit, literally looked at me and let out a little laugh. A fucking little laugh. Then he told Maxwell, "Your sister has always been such a dreamer, hasn't she?" As if I were a 5-year-old girl talking about unicorns and not a professional presenting a legitimate market analysis. Maxwell laughed too, obviously, and said something like, maybe I should focus on more realistic things. That the real estate business was complicated and required real experience. The real experience he supposedly had after 4 years of basically being my dad's glorified assistant. Like 3 months went by of that dynamic, going to the Marshall Enterprises office every day, trying to be taken seriously, and being treated like decoration or the coffee girl. In strategy meetings, they wouldn't even let me finish a sentence. Once. I swear. Once, I was presenting an analysis about commercial properties in the Loop, and my dad literally cut me off halfway through to ask Maxwell what he thought about the office market. Maxwell hadn't even done the research. He was repeating things he'd read in some Wall Street Journal article. But my dad looked at him like he was listening to the Oracle of Delphi or something. I'd just sit there feeling my face turn red, trying not to cry from frustration, wondering what the hell I had to do to be seen. The breaking point was at a strategy meeting on a Friday afternoon. I'd spent weeks working on a proposal to expand into the luxury residential property market in Gold Coast. I'd identified 3 specific buildings that were undervalued. I had contacts with the owners. Everything. I stood in front of the board of directors, which was basically my dad, Maxwell, and like 5 old guys who'd been in the business for 30 years, and I started my presentation. I didn't even get to the 3rd slide when my dad interrupted me. "Audrey, honey, I appreciate the effort, but I don't think this is the time for this type of project. We already discussed this last week. Remember?" Except no, we hadn't discussed it. He had talked about something completely different with Maxwell, and I hadn't even been in that conversation. I tried to explain, but he simply thanked me and asked me to sit down. Maxwell continued with his presentation about, I don't know what boring corporate office project, and I just sat there feeling something inside me break. I left that meeting and went straight to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall and cried for like 10 minutes. Not from sadness, really, but from pure rage. I was furious. You know that moment when you decide that enough is enough, that you're not going to keep begging for crumbs of attention and respect? Well, that was my moment. I dried my tears, fixed my makeup, went back to my desk, and and started doing something I should have done from the beginning: plan my own shit. That same night, I started reviewing my personal finances. I had a trust fund that my maternal grandmother had left me, like $1.5 million that had been sitting there since I turned 21. I also had my savings, which wasn't much, but something. And most importantly, I had knowledge, contacts from college, and a mental list of all the opportunities my family had ignored or rejected in recent years. Basically, I had everything I needed to start my own real estate company. I just had never dared, because, well, because part of me still wanted my dad's approval, still wanted to be part of Marshall Enterprises. But you know what? Fuck that. If they didn't want me on their team, I was going to create my own team and be better than them. That simple. I started in secret. I didn't tell my family anything. I kept going to the Marshall Enterprises office, acting like nothing was happening, smiling at Tuesday family dinners, putting up with the condescending comments. But in my free time, which was basically all my time because nobody gave me real work anyway, I started investing. I started with those properties in the West Loop that I'd identified months earlier, the ones my dad had ignored. I bought 2 small residential buildings for a total of $800,000, renovated them on a super tight budget, and sold them 6 months later for $1.5 million. Boom. First victory. But I couldn't do this alone, you know? I needed a partner, someone who understood the vision and who, honestly, could be the public face of the business while I worked behind the scenes. That's where Sophia Tran comes in. I met her at a networking event for young real estate professionals. Sophia was incredible, like, super charismatic, smart, and best of all, she was looking to start her own firm but didn't have the capital. I had the capital and the strategy. She had the presence and the sales skills. It was the perfect match. We met at a Starbucks in the Loop on a Sunday afternoon, and I explained my whole plan to her. I told her, look, I want to build a real estate firm that focuses on undervalued properties with development potential, especially in emerging neighborhoods. I want to make smart, fast, and profitable investments. And I need you to be the public face of the company while I work on strategy and finances. Sophia looked at me like I was crazy for like 30 seconds, but then she smiled and said, I'm in. That's how Tran and Partners was born. The name was Sophia's idea. She said it sounded more established and professional than using my last name. And honestly, I was happy to keep my name out of it for the moment. The first 2 years were intense. I kept working at Marshall Enterprises during the day, doing the boring work they assigned me, going to meetings where they ignored me, and then, at night and on weekends, I worked on Tran and Partners. Sophia and I met like 3 times a week to review properties, negotiate deals, plan strategies. We bought 6 more properties that first year, all in areas that were about to gentrify, you know, those areas where hipsters and millennials with money were starting to move in but prices were still accessible. Pilsen, Logan Square, parts of Bridgeport. We'd buy, renovate quickly but well, and sell with profit margins of 40 to 60%. It was crazy. At Tuesday family dinners, my family kept doing the same thing. My dad and Maxwell talked about their projects. Clara talked about her parties and her plans to marry I don't know what heir from another rich family. And they'd ask me things like, and you, Audrey, still at the office? Have they given you any real projects yet? Or are you still filing documents? They'd laugh, because to them it was a joke, but to me every comment was like a reminder of why I was doing what I was doing. I never told them about Tran and Partners. Part of me wanted to rub it in their faces, but the other part, the smarter part, knew that keeping it secret was my biggest advantage. By the 3rd year, Tran and Partners had already moved like $15 million in properties. It wasn't just me and Sophia anymore. We'd hired 4 more agents. We had a small but professional office in River North, and we were starting to be recognized in the industry. Sophia was brilliant in client meetings and networking events. Everyone loved her. And me, well, I was the ghost that made everything work. I analyzed markets until 3 in the morning, negotiated contracts, managed finances, everything. And nobody in my family had a fucking clue. Eventually, I left Marshall Enterprises. I told them I needed a break, that I was thinking about traveling or maybe doing a master's degree, and my dad basically told me that was fine, that it was probably for the best, because I wasn't contributing much anyway. Maxwell agreed. Clara hugged me and told me I looked stressed and that a break would do me good. None of them wondered what I was really going to do or how I was going to support myself. They assumed I'd live off my trust fund being a rich girl with no purpose. Perfect. With more time to dedicate to Tran and partners, the company exploded. In the 4th year, we were already handling big commercial properties, not just residential. Sophia closed an incredible deal for a boutique office building in West Loop for $12 million. We converted it into luxury lofts and sold it for $18 million. I negotiated the purchase of a development lot in Fulton Market for almost nothing because I identified that the owners needed quick liquidity, and we resold it to a big developer for triple. We were on fire, literally. And at family dinners, when I showed up, because honestly, I was going less and less. My family kept up with their comments. Audrey, when are you? Going back to the real world? Are you done with your existential break yet? My dad once offered me to come back to Marshall Enterprises as his personal assistant. His personal assistant? The man literally offered me to be his glorified secretary after I'd graduated with honors and worked there for 2 years. I told him thanks but no, that I was exploring options. Maxwell let out a little laugh and said, "Options? Like what? Yoga instructor?" Everyone laughed. I smiled and changed the subject. What they didn't know was that by that time, year 5 of Tran and Partners, we were valued at close to $30 million. $30 million. We'd handled over 50 properties, we had a team of 15 people, and we were being invited to the most exclusive real estate industry events in Chicago. Sophia was a star. Everyone wanted to work with her, and I was perfectly happy being the shadow that made everything work. Then came the gala. The annual Chicago Real Estate Association Gala, the biggest event of the year for the industry. It's like the Oscars, but for people who sell buildings. Marshall Enterprises always won some award. My dad was like a fixture there. Everyone knew and respected him. Sophia had been begging me for months to go with her, that it was important I be there because we were going to be nominated for the Innovation and Excellence Award, which was basically the most prestigious award for emerging firms. I kept telling her no, that my family was going to be there, and I didn't want the drama, but she insisted. Finally, I agreed, but on the condition that I was going to keep a low profile. The gala was at the Four Seasons, in that huge ballroom with ridiculous chandeliers and tables decorated like it was a royal wedding. I arrived with Sophia, me in a simple black dress, trying not to draw attention, and her spectacular in a red dress that made everyone turn around. I saw my family almost immediately. My dad was at a table near the stage, obviously, with Maxwell next to him and Clara with her fiancé of the moment. They didn't see me come in, or if they saw me, they didn't care enough to say hello. Dinner was eternal. You know how those events are. Boring speeches, awards for this and that, people politely clapping. Maxwell won some award for young leaders in real estate, and my dad looked super proud. I was sitting there with Sophia and our team, trying not to think about how I felt seeing my family celebrate Maxwell's achievements while they didn't even know what I had built. Then they announced the Innovation and Excellence Award. They listed the nominees, and when they said, Tran and Partners, I felt my heart race. Sophia squeezed my hand under the table. And then they said, and the winner is Tran and Partners. The table exploded in screams and applause. Sophia hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and I was there like, this is really happening, right? Sophia went up on stage to receive the award. She looked amazing, super professional and confident. She started her acceptance speech, talking about hard work, vision, the incredible team we had. And then she said something I wasn't expecting. But before I continue, there's someone I need to recognize. The real mastermind behind Tran and Partners, the person who has been working tirelessly behind the scenes for the last 6 years, the strategist, the visionary, my partner and friend, Audrey Marshall. I felt my face get hot, like all the eyes in the room were turning toward me. Sophia was motioning for me to come up on stage, and honestly, I thought about running out. But something inside me said, no, you earned this. Get up there. So I stood up, and as I walked toward the stage, I could see my family's faces. My dad had his mouth literally open. Maxwell looked like he'd just seen a ghost. Clara was confused but surprised. It was surreal. I went up on stage. Sophia handed me the microphone, and for a moment I didn't know what to say. Then it just came out. Thank you. This. It means a lot, especially because many people in this room, including my own family, never thought I could accomplish something like this. For years, they told me I wasn't good enough, that I didn't have what it takes, that I should focus on more realistic things. And honestly, those comments hurt, but they also motivated me to prove they were wrong. So thank you to everyone who underestimated me, because without you, I probably wouldn't have built this. The room burst into applause. Sophia hugged me again, and we went down from the stage together. The rest of the night was a blur of people congratulating us, asking for business cards, wanting meetings. And at some point, I saw my dad walking toward me. We went out to the hotel terrace because I needed fresh air, and because honestly, I didn't want to have that conversation in front of everyone. My dad looked old suddenly, like really old, and tired. He stood there for a moment without saying anything, looking at the city, and then finally spoke. Audrey, I didn't know. I had no idea you'd built all this. Why didn't you ever tell us? And I laughed. Because what else could I do? And I told him, I tried to tell you, Dad, hundreds of times, but you never listened. He didn't say anything for like a whole minute, and then he admitted something I never thought I'd hear. You were right about the West Loop properties, the ones you presented to me years ago. Maxwell and I finally invested there last year, and it's been incredibly profitable. I should have listened to you then. I should have listened to you many times. I'm sorry. It was weird. You know, hearing my dad apologize. Samuel Marshall didn't apologize to anyone, and he definitely didn't admit to being wrong. But there he was, and for a moment I felt some satisfaction, like complete vindication. But I also felt some sadness, because part of me was still that 6-year-old girl who just wanted her dad to be proud of her. Then my dad said something I should have seen coming. Audrey, I want to make this right. I want you to come back to Marshall Enterprises, but this time as a full partner. And more than that, I want us to consider acquiring Tran and Partners, integrating it with our operations. We could be unstoppable together. The merger would create the most powerful real estate firm in the entire Midwest. And there it was. The offer I probably would have killed to receive 6 years ago. My dad was finally offering me a seat at the table, recognition, partnership. But you know what? I didn't need it anymore. I didn't want it. I told him, Dad, I appreciate the offer, really, but Tran and Partners is mine. I built it from scratch precisely because Marshall Enterprises didn't want me. And now that I've built it, that it's successful and recognized, you want to buy it? You want to integrate it into your empire? No. The answer is no. I'm going to keep my company, my independence, and my freedom. I don't need your validation or your last name to be successful. My dad just stood there looking at me, and I could see he was processing all this, probably for the first time really seeing me as a complete person and not as his disappointing middle child. He didn't say anything else, just nodded slowly and went back inside. That was like 8 months ago. Since then, things have been weird with my family. I still go to Tuesday dinners occasionally, but now there's an awkward respect. Maxwell tries to ask me questions about market strategies. My dad sends me occasional emails with collaboration ideas that I politely decline. Clara is confused but proud. I think she still doesn't quite understand what I do. But at least she doesn't ask me anymore when I'm going to get a real job. Tran and Partners keeps growing. We just closed our biggest deal yet, a mixed-use development in Pilsen for $25 million. Sophia continues to be the public star, and I continue to be happy working in the shadows, although now more people know who I really am. And best of all is that I did it completely on my own terms, without asking permission, without waiting for approval, just doing the work and being better at it than everyone who told me I couldn't. Last week, my dad sent me another email asking if we could have lunch to discuss collaboration opportunities. I told him I was busy. And the truth is, I am busy. Building my own legacy. One that doesn't need the Marshall name to be respected. And that's enough for me.